Welcome.
Thank you.
Here we go. Oh my gosh, it is Nancy Garrison,
Hi, Mike.
the the official Nancy Garrison, not the fake Nancy Garrison.
No, authentic.
The real deal.
The
This
real
isn't
deal.
like an AI
No,
version of you. This is
no,
really you.
no. The gray roots will tell you this is authentic.
I often wonder how gray my hair would be if I let it grow out.
We'll find out.
I don't know. Well, Nancy, you just told me something that kind of piqued my curiosity.
Oh no. Oh
You
no.
just said that you were on a radio show with Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah,
He's the guy that announces Sunday Night Football?
he is. Yeah,
I like that guy. I don't know why. I don't know
yeah,
him, but I
yeah,
sometimes you just feel like you like somebody. So
yeah.
tell me how that happened. This isn't your moment, but this is
It's not
interesting.
my
So
moment. This was
you're
a
on the
moment.
radio back in Ohio
Back in
with Chris
Ohio
Collinsworth.
with Chris Collinsworth, I was doing sports marketing was my gig
Uh-huh.
at the time for Northern Kentucky University, and we were doing some PR stuff. So I got to go on the radio, WLW Cincinnati. If you're from Ohio, you know it. And they had a Stump the Sports Guy segment. And then they would bring in, so they had like some of the athletes, and then they would bring in
Yeah.
a guest, and the guest was promoting whatever.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, so I got to, people would call in and ask like sports trivia questions to try and stump the sports people.
Uh-huh.
And just, spoiler alert, they would go to a commercial and then feed me the answer. And then I
Oh
would,
my gosh.
and then come back. But yeah, so it was fun. It was a great time. I was probably 26, 27, something like that. So good time.
Yeah. Still just a pup.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
What?
It's been a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple years.
A couple years.
Yeah.
Decade or two. Something like that.
Give or take. Give or take.
Give or take.
Wow. So sports marketing, and that was what you were pursuing at the time, as far as
Yeah.
I wanna do that. What part of sports marketing was the draw for you? What did you like about it?
It's a great question. I love an event, so I love a beginning, ending. I love the build up. I love planning it. Also, just a sports girl. Love the sports. I mean, I was 20 something, so athletes. I was single, so that was a good time. But it was just the energy, the signage. It was before the internet was really taking everything over, so just the I like the marketing and the sales side of it as well. So it was thinking, oh, we have this whole blank space. Who can we get to buy signage or put a patch on a jersey or that kind of thing? So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I worked a couple Bengals games, used to work the minor league soccer, or not soccer, I'm sorry, hockey team in Cincinnati. So it was a whole different environment. But a good time. Met Barry Sanders. That was fun.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The GOAT, Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
Wow. Was that so? I'm trying to think of the Bengals team back then. We had Ickey Woods and we had Boomer Esiason. Those are the only two names that pop into my head. Were those two guys in that era? Ickey Woods with the
Boomer, yes. I didn't get to meet him. I worked in the production booth mostly. Most of what I did was at Northern Kentucky University. Like I worked like all of the basketball events, and it was kind of fun because we were there right before they were becoming a D1 university. So learned about that stuff, like presidential donations, and we had big 3-on-3 fundraisers, like all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it was a good time.
Love it. And how long did you stick with that?
I did that for maybe 3 or 4, probably 4 or 5 years. But it's all nights and weekends. So once I got married and wanted to have a family, it was just not conducive to that. But a great gig in my 20s. A lot of fun.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. And let's get into how the heck. So I run into you last week at the grocery store.
Lowe's Foods, shout out.
Yeah. Shout out. The cool thing, I don't know if I told you this, but this podcast was birthed from the idea of Where's the podcast for the rest of us to
Yeah.
tell our stories?
Yeah, I love that.
People who when someone has them on their podcast, it's not just because it's going to get tons of ratings. Oh my gosh, I have
Yeah.
Bryce Young on my podcast. Well,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of cross-pollination people attempt to do to kind of build their brand or build up
Right.
their audience. And I went, that's not my goal at all. My
Yeah.
goal is to put something out there into the world that's interesting,
Yes.
that's entertaining, that's educational,
Right.
somewhat, that might be inspirational for somebody. When you hear someone else's story and you go, wow, that's how they made it through
Yeah.
whatever it is that they were going through. Some of the episodes I have are very heavy and weighty, and some are not so much. Like I interviewed Caesar, a guy named Caesar, and he just talked about making the decision to go to grad school.
Yeah.
But it was a great conversation. And
Right.
so for someone who's in a place where they're considering whether they go to grad school, that's a great episode to listen to. So
I love that. Who
here
needs
we are,
TED Talk? We have Mike Talk.
us normal people. Here we are.
Here we are. Well,
telling our stories.
Telling our story. So we don't. That's to say, if I'm not famous, then I have no valuable life lessons, which just doesn't make sense. So I love that you're doing
No,
this.
it doesn't. It doesn't. But Nancy, I would say you and I are both fame-ish. How about that?
Yeah.
We're fame-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. I would accept that.
But we've known each other for a couple years through church, and
yeah, at least I would say 4 or 5 maybe at this point.
Yeah. And the cool thing that I know about you is that you've got a big heart for college kids and seeing them do well and seeing them pursue faith and pursue living a great life and getting their act together,
Hopefully.
at that stage in life.
Yeah.
So good on you investing
Thank
in
you.
the college kids, adults. I don't know why we call them college kids, but they
feel like well, I have college children, so maybe for me that's why.
Me
maybe
too.
That's why it feels like you do too, right? So that's why it feels like that. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's been not something I intentionally went after pursuing. I did have, a couple decades probably in youth ministry under my belt, but when 2020 hit, Pastor Jeff came to us and said, hey, I got this big group of kids that they shut down their university. They got nothing to do. They don't fit anywhere. How do you feel about making a spot for them? And we're like, let's go. So we did. Yeah, we just finished our 4th year or 4th, whatever you want to call it, semester or whatever, where we got together with those kids. So it's been awesome.
That's awesome. I love it. Nancy, tell me one thing that happened today that was, I'm just pulling this out of my head. One thing that happened today that was a surprise. You didn't see it coming. It could be little, it could be big, it could be a spider jumped out at you. Anything. Something that happened today that was a surprise.
Well, let's see. I'm a type 8. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so I like to control as much as possible. So I would say I have a little part-time job gig that I do just to get me out of the house and honestly to allow me to meet people and share the things I know with them. And I went to make our bank deposit today because yesterday was Columbus Day and Sunday banks are closed. And as I stood in line, their computers crashed.
Oh.
So they had to manually enter a bunch of stuff. So what would have normally take a max 5 minutes took a solid 20 today. So I'm paid by the hour, so that's not a big deal. But for them, it was quite a big deal. But so I didn't see that coming. That's normal. It's a normal, easy, routine thing that happens all the time. And today, not so much.
And then the thing that you were supposed to do exactly 12 and a half minutes later got pushed back. So
eat my sandwich. I wasn't happy about that.
Nancy,
I got a little hangry.
I want to know what kind of sandwich. That's important to me to know what kind of sandwich.
Well, it was a sub. So I was at Harris. I work right beside Harris Teeter. So it was, turkey provolone, little mayo, little mustard, little spinach, and I'm good.
All right, you're a mayo girl.
Mayo and mustard. I like the combo.
See,
It
I'll
says a
never
lot
do
about me.
mayo
Yeah,
for
I'm
any
extra.
reason ever.
No.
It's all oil and vinegar all
Yeah.
the way.
No. Sour cream?
It depends.
No.
Not usually sour cream on a sandwich,
Well, not on
though.
a sandwich, but I feel like they're in a similar
Yeah, I'm
family.
saying I'm going right strictly subs and
Yeah.
sandwiches at this point in my brain. But
Yeah.
this
Definitely mayo.
was 10 years living in New Jersey that rubbed off on me.
And I'm a Midwest girl, so.
Yeah. If you ask for mayonnaise at a deli in New Jersey, usually the response you'll get is, "Oh, you want to go ahead and ruin it? You want to ruin it? Okay, sure, I'll ruin it for you." Oh, they'll make it for you. They'll just roast you.
That's fun.
Wow.
That's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you were from New Jersey. I didn't know that.
Oh, well, from is relative because I grew up a Navy kid. And just ended up in New Jersey for college and then stayed there another 6 years.
Oh.
So I was there for 10 years before moving to North Kakalaki in 2004.
That's fun.
So almost 20 years here, this is by far the longest I've ever lived in one state.
Does it feel like home, or does Jersey still feel like home?
Oh, this definitely feels like home by now.
Okay.
It's been 19 years, you know, since I moved down here. And in the beginning, you know, I would talk about it a lot, but there are a few people that I know, some of them that you know also, and we talk about the things in Jersey that just aren't the same down here.
I'm sure.
Yeah, like some of the food items or the way people talk or, you know, things like that.
Driving.
Drive. Not pumping your own gas, which New Jersey is now the final state in the country left. Oregon just ended 51 years of not being able to pump your own gas. They ended that in August, and now Jersey is the only state in the country where you cannot pump your own gas.
Yeah. Some things are better left alone. Yeah. I grew up in Ohio. We did that. Like they would clean your windshield. They would pump your gas. And yeah, I'm down for that. Let's do that.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Okay, Nancy, without further ado, we've got to get this thing going. People are here for this.
Yes.
They're here for your moment. They're ready to be inspired, to be intrigued by what you have to share. And so the moment that you're going to capture happened at what period in your life? Let's capture that first. What period of your life are we talking? Are we talking right out of college? Are we talking high school?
No, I was a mom. I was close to, I was probably, like, listen, I've been on the planet for a while. There are multiple moments, but this is the one that I keep coming back to. So I was probably right at 40.
Right at 40, okay.
Right at 40, which would have made I had 2 daughters, would have made them 8 and 6.
Okay. Fascinating. Yeah. So let's capture life a tiny bit for you at the time. You're a mom. What are you getting into? What does daily rhythm look like? Where you live in?
We had moved 2 years prior from Cincinnati, Ohio, rural Cincinnati area, to like Clearwater Beach, Florida, Tampa area. Huge move for the Garrison family. Big move. Girls were 4 and 6 when we moved, so we're living life. We're literally going to Clearwater Beach after church on Sundays and just soaking it all in. I have an incredibly overachiever oldest daughter that we have to have things for her to do, or she would just lose her mind. So she was involved at the time in competitive dance. So we were doing a lot of time at the studio. They were in Christian school. I was working at the school in the high school. I was a drama teacher. We talked about that earlier. So that was the majority of what we were doing. Their schedules were my schedules at the point.
Gotcha. And the moment itself, as we dive into this, why was this such a big deal that this moment happened? Like, how did this affect you before you actually knew about this? What impact was it having on you before you really learned more about what was going on?
Yeah, so it's going to sound maybe kind of like minute and stupid, but um, my entire life, I was told, I mean, I can remember 4 years old being told, Nancy's really smart. She's just really lazy. She could do things. She's just not trying hard
Uh,
enough.
hmm.
Yeah, so I have like this great analogy that I've used to explain it to other people. I think great analogy. I'm an analogy person. But
Mm-hmm.
I said, like, imagine if you're a penguin and
Mm-hmm.
everyone told you you can fly because you're a
Mm-hmm.
bird and you have wings, you're just not trying hard enough.
Mm,
So the big moment for me was basically
mm-hmm.
like learning I'm not broken, I'm a penguin. If that
Mm.
makes any sense at all. That's the way
Yeah,
my
of
brain
course.
works.
Of course. Wow. Okay. Well, let's dive into the moment.
Yeah.
So capture a little bit about how this moment was discovered.
Sure. It was unexpected. I wasn't looking for it. Had
Mm-hmm.
just kind of, accepted, which it's bizarre, all the different things it has impacted in my life that fall under this umbrella. So at the time, we were probably spending, I don't know, anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a week in the dance studio. It was a big studio, but the moms that had kids on the competitive team were sitting in the lounge area for hours on end. So you just kind of talk, find out what people do for a living, where they're
Mm-hmm.
from, blah, blah, blah. And one of the moms was gosh, I can't even, it's terrible. I can't even remember her name, but she was like a behavior specialist, worked with the
Mm-hmm.
schools, kids that had learning disabilities and that kind of thing. And I was like, that's fascinating to me. I always had these things that popped up that I always thought were kind of odd. And I went through the list with her and she said, I said, but they asked me if I was, I had a professor that said, maybe I think you might be dyslexic, but I have incredible reading comprehension. So that didn't make any sense. I was a really good reader. So I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
shelved it. And she's like, no, no, there's a type of dyslexia that, I mean, kind of the nickname is math dyslexia, but it's called dyscalculia. She's like, you have every one of those symptoms. And it was so bizarre to go from, yeah, you're just not trying, because I knew I was trying. And it's
Mm-hmm.
all these things, Mike, like weird things that it affected. And then like started researching it. And it was like, oh my gosh, I knew it. I'm not broken. I'm just a penguin. I just have dyscalculia. And as I
Mm-hmm.
unraveled that, it was just such a healing moment for me of it completely changed my self-esteem, completely changed my lens of looking at myself and all of the stories and all of those things. I don't know. It might sound small to you, but to me it was life altering.
Oh, that's not small at all. Not at all. Walk me through that day.
Okay.
You're in the dance studio. She
Yeah.
shares this with you. Did
Yeah.
you go home, talk to Hubs, and say, hey, guess what I heard today? Or did you go home and just start researching?
Yeah.
Did you go see a specialist? Well, first, talk me through that day, or what was swirling through your head. Even did you go back and start replaying some moments from
Oh yeah.
the past that you
Oh
went,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
Excuse me.
So
Yeah.
tell me about
So
that day.
so I went home, probably hooked up my dial up. No, it wasn't that long. But got on the internet. Definitely, didn't have yeah, got on my AOL account. Um, Yeah, so we did not have smartphones, but we did have
Hmm.
internet at the time. So I went
Hmm.
home and I just started doing the Google thing. And I was
Hmm.
like, holy cow. Like it wasn't just um I mean like okay, so for example, you will have a delayed ability typically to learn how to drive because it's very spatial centered. I failed my driver's test 3 times and it was like a joke in
Hmm.
the family that I couldn't drive. Well, no, it wasn't that I couldn't do it. It was that I was
Wow.
dealing over this thing. It was I grew up, I remember like just third grade failing math, failing F's, um, all these different things. When I just, like, I knew they would just over and over again say, she's really smart. She's just not trying. And I was like, gosh, I know I'm trying. I just
Hmm.
can't do it. So it was validation in a lot of ways of like, I told you. I told you.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. There was just, I mean, it was like pulling a thread on on something that's unraveling. It just kept pulling like all of these different things that
Mm-hmm.
had been throughout my life.
Mm-hmm. So my brain is going in 84 different directions right now. But
Welcome to
I
my
want to
life.
know, well, this is so interesting how many facets there are, how many layers there are to this, and how many people grow up thinking there's something wrong with them,
Hmm.
being convinced there's something wrong with them,
Yeah.
and how that puts a straitjacket on so many people to walk around as not their best self,
Yes.
not their fully realized potential
Yes.
of who they're created to be,
Hmm.
and being told, I mean, for me, it was, oh my gosh. I mean, I was ADD poster child, but ADD wasn't even really a thing back
Right.
then, but I was
Yeah.
such a spaz in school. And there was a time when I was, well, I did fourth grade twice. Luckily, we moved in between, so I didn't have
Okay.
to face all the other
Yeah.
students
The
as fifth
stigma.
graders, and I'm still in fourth grade. But uh, they said, hey, if you really do great and you're getting straight A's, then we'll just bump you up.
Oh,
But it just wasn't in my personality to do that because I was such a spaz. But being placed in fourth grade, they didn't know what to do with me anymore, my teachers. So they took a puppet stage, like a just like a facade of like a puppet stage.
yeah.
It was just this little wall with a cutout, and they covered it with paper, built built a an area in the back corner of the room where that was a wall that blocked everyone from me, and put my desk back there, so it was me and the window watching the birds outside and the bookshelf, and then I would have to like
Oh,
peek around to see everybody and
it's
go back into my
humiliating.
little
That's
cave.
awful. I'm sorry that you experienced that. That's terrible.
But but here I am now, all these years later, and I I had someone tell me one time that he had contacts at Saturday Night Live and he was going to try to get me an audition. After watching me do characters and
Wow.
entertaining an entire crowd of 300 people,
Yeah.
doing all these characters and
Yeah.
voices, he says, dude, you are so funny and so creative and so witty.
Yeah.
I've got a contact at SNL. I'm going to try to get you an audition.
Wow. That's
But no one told
incredible.
me that when I was 8.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
you've got all these possible things in your future based on who you are,
Yeah.
the exact way you are.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. It just has to be managed.
Right. Right. I felt very broken. I mean, that's why I keep saying it. I wasn't broken. You just didn't understand me.
Right. And you didn't even understand yourself
I didn't
because
understand myself. I didn't fit into, and no one knew. It wasn't a conscious choice. So I didn't have like bitterness
Mhm.
or resentment or,
Right.
it wasn't, I went to 3 high schools, so I never even had continuity. So I wasn't like
Mhm.
someone chose to say, well, we could help her, but we're choosing not to. It was just, to me, it felt almost like a loving moment. Like I believe that God gave me that clarity to let me know you're not broken. This is just, you have to work around this learning disability. And it was very freeing for me.
Would you use the word epiphany?
Yes, that's a perfect word. It was 100% an epiphany. It was like the
Yeah.
sun was like, oh, yeah, it was beautiful. It was
Who
healing.
who did you share this with and digest this with that was probably the most emotional for you? The most
Hmm.
weighty? Was it with your father? Was it with your mother? Was it with your sister? Was it, I don't know your
Yeah.
family dynamics,
Yeah.
but
I was
who
gonna say, do
was
you
it that
know? Do I have a sister?
who was it that it was like the most palpable? You're like, "Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, that it was a very where maybe they felt such remorse for giving you a hard time.
Yeah, that would be delightful if that was the case.
Mm,
No, I mean, I think my mom, I mean, let me be nice. My, my, hmm. I mean, my mom is very sympathetic, and I will say I know she's apologized a couple of times, but again, she didn't know. She was 21 when she had me, 19 when she had my brother. They were just
mm-hmm,
keeping their head above water. So she definitely was like, wow. Like I even texted her this morning because I was just doing, looking up to make sure that I had some of my facts straight. I didn't want to give bad information. And it was a
mm-hmm.
family joke. So we were of the time when everyone a big night out was to go to the steakhouse buffets, right? The Bonanza, the
Yes.
Ponderosa, the Golden Corrals, if you will.
Yes.
So it was
Bonanza. Oh my
right,
gosh.
right. So you know what I'm talking about. So you would
Woo.
go, you would order, you would get your tray. They would give you your
Yeah.
drink, your silver, or whatever, and then you would go sit down.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
family joke that every time I'd be like, no, I can do it. And I'm like 9, 10, 11. I'm not 2. And
Yeah.
without fail, I think my mom would back me up on this. Every single time when I would try to put my tray down, I would spill my drink. Every single time, which was it's still a family joke, right? That I
Yeah.
was a klutz, that I was a dit. And
Yeah.
upon checking my facts, I realized that's a spatial awareness problem with people that have
Mm.
dyscalculia. So like what
Mm-hmm.
was like over and over again at the time embarrassing. I mean, obviously it didn't scar me. I'm fine. But it was embarrassing and it was like, oh, you're just clumsy or you're a dit.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have spatial awareness issues.
Yeah.
So it was freeing to know that. So I texted her that and she's like, oh, it's so sad that we didn't know that. I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like you chose not to know it. It's fine.
Right.
So she was
Right.
probably the most sympathetic
Yeah.
or felt like she should have known something. But, you know, again, it wasn't like she had a choice.
Yeah. How about your brother when you shared it with him?
How did you know I have,
You
I
just
said that.
said
I
your
have
mom was 8, your mom
that's
was
right.
19.
Yeah. So
Because I listen, Nancy.
I appreciate that. And maybe you could train other people in that.
Oh gosh.
I have
I know
one
you
brother.
don't have a sister.
That's true. I gave that away. He's 18 months older than me. It was just the two of us. So we were, thick as thieves, Batman, Robin, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And he's actually a licensed psychologist. So when I first told him I was dyslexic, he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, no, it's a type of dyslexia. He's like, I don't think you are. So, but he just didn't know. I mean, he just had not been exposed to it. And that was 16 years ago, which at the time I was told, oh, it's very rare. You look it up now and they're like, oh, it's not rare. It's just now, it's not considered a rare disorder now. It's considered very common.
Right.
So it was, when I found out about it, I was at the learning, like the early stages of it becoming common knowledge that it was recognized as a learning disorder. So
Yeah.
and now, honestly, I just don't think I've even talked to him about it. My daughters are incredibly sympathetic about it. We have a joke around the house where I'm just like, I'm not your average dyslexic, I'm your special dyslexic. So anytime I do something funny, like switch a number around or something, they just laugh and say, remember, you're not an average dyslexic. So it's like, it's a joke in our house. We make fun of everything, but that's just who we are. Humor.
Well, it's so good when you can get to the point of accepting something so much that you can have humor around it.
Yeah.
Like my buddy Daniel, who I had on the podcast a few months ago, was born without arms.
Oh, I know Daniel. Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel Ritchie.
Yes.
And he he was standing in line at about to get on a plane, and this guy behind him was just he said, I just gotta ask, like, was it a bear?
My goodness.
I think that's what happened. Like, he said, was it a bear? Or it was Daniel saying, bro, a bear. It was
that
wild.
I can see.
or something to that effect. But
Yeah.
just the fact that Daniel can do that. I did a speaking engagement with him at a school once, and we went and talked to a group of kids that they really wanted us to spend some extra time with. And so we were in a classroom, and I had the idea of having a challenge between Daniel and some of the kids. I said, who wants to compete against Daniel? And so the first one was signing your name with your feet,
Yeah.
holding the pen with your toes,
Yeah.
signing your name. And the next was peeling and eating a banana. It was one of the funniest
That's
moments
fantastic.
I've ever seen, because Daniel, of course, does it in seconds.
Right.
His signature looks
Crushed it.
great,
Yeah.
and just opens the banana. He's finished with it. The kid's still smushing it between his toes,
So
trying to get it
funny.
open.
Yeah.
But when you can come around and see yourself as not damaged goods and
Right.
not broken and less than,
Yes. Yes.
as as like where your thing that makes you different, you now see it almost as an advantage
Yeah.
rather than a disadvantage. That's rare, but it's incredible when you see
It
it
is.
happen.
It is. And there's a big trickle effect of that, right? So you might not have dyscalculia, but maybe, I don't know, have, maybe you have a child that has autism, or maybe you're left-handed, or maybe you're, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. For
Mm-hmm.
me, this is how God made me. We
Mm-hmm.
know, I believe the scripture, and it says he doesn't make mistakes. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so just to flip that script, and to me, it's just a ripple effect of I can
Yeah.
share. And I actually did have an opportunity to kind of tutor some kids that showed a lot of the same symptoms that I had when I was working at the school. So that was kind of
Mm-hmm.
fun. I could show them, teach them some of the tricks I had learned to survive, but
Yeah.
it was good.
Not tell me, tell everyone listening more about this book you're finishing up. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, I have no ambition particularly to be a writer, and God's like, ha ha ha, you're going to be a writer. So, gosh, it's a book. It's a kind of a little journey to get to it, but basically, it's a 30-day devotional book of how to unpack joy in your life. So, if you
Mm-hmm.
want joy in your life, here are 30 lessons God has taught me to cultivate or
Mm-hmm.
craft that into your existence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
And then, so you actually found, like, how did this happen? You found a publisher? Like,
I did.
well, I'm curious if it's connected at all to the moment. If there's anything that is like a thread between the two
Hadn't
to
thought of
writing
it.
a book.
Well, that's a great question. I had not really pondered that before.
And even, Nancy, even if it's not that you talk about it overtly
Yes.
within the pages, just your moment could have then set the course for you to be a little more confident,
Oh,
to
yeah.
think that I could do something like write a book.
Absolutely.
So maybe even that's part of the thread.
Yes, I definitely think that. Definitely confident enough that, like, okay, this is a challenge, but I don't have to hide from it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I've sought some professional coaching and some things like that because I am not trained to be a published writer.
Mm-hmm.
That it has definitely given me the confidence that the truth that God wastes nothing. I think he's an efficient God. So, okay, I was going through a horrific time, and it's maybe a different story for a different day, but it was a really rough time. And I reached out to a pastor friend of mine, and he actually gave me an answer that was a question I was asking God. Didn't know I was asking the question. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it gave me the skill set of learning how to see things from a different angle, if that makes any sense. Like, everything's not a straight line. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
things go in different directions. There are lessons that you can learn in things that aren't necessarily obvious, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
any sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. Any encouragement as we wind down?
Yes.
Any encouragement for either someone that has a kid that they wonder why their kid is acting a little off,
Yeah.
or somebody that might still be in the place, however old they are, listening to this, of wondering if something about them actually is not what they think it is. What would be your encouragement for people in those situations?
That's a great question, Mike.
I know that's a very broad
No,
brushstroke of
I love
people.
that though, because to me, the story isn't over until you share it with somebody else.
Yeah.
So I love that question. I would say, whatever your experience is, just because you're different, just because you don't line up with what you've been told to line up with, does not mean you're broken. Different and broken are not the same thing.
I'm gonna write that on something.
Snap, snap, snap.
I'm gonna tweet. That's tweetable right there, Nancy.
Hashtag. Thank you. Yeah. So different and broken are not the same thing, and yeah, it's okay. It's okay that you do things differently. That to me was, and don't hide it. I mean, I for so long just had to fake it. I mean, I became so good at cheating on tests. I don't say that pridefully, like, oh, yay, I'm good. But it was like, I had to figure out a way to get through it. So don't, keep looking. Don't accept it. Keep talking to people. Because had I not been open and had a conversation, be vulnerable. Had I not had that conversation, I possibly would have still not known.
Yeah, it was you that brought it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't her that said, "What's wrong with you? Why'd you spill your drink?"
Not at all. So it was me asking. So, don't be ashamed. Don't be open. Talk to people about it, and you'll be surprised.
Yeah. Seek the truth and you will find it.
Seek the truth. And I work with a young girl who just graduated high school who has dyscalculia, which is what it's called, dyscalculia. And she actually, she has some other things going on, but she had texted me not too long ago, and she's like, it is such a delight to work with someone who understands my brain. She's like, you don't know how isolating that feels. I was like, oh no, babe, I do. I do. But she has, so, like, something good can come from literally almost honestly anything.
Yeah, agreed. That's a great segue into landing the plane there, Miss Garrison, Miss Nancy. This has been awesome.
Thanks for letting me talk.
And it seems even though these are 30 to 40 minutes long, these episodes it never feels like enough.
Yeah.
I just think that we have so much to give each other. And we just need outlets to give to just share stories. I mean, that's.
Yeah. And we're always learning. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to you're not going to get to the end of that sentence. It's just always, my 96-year-old grandma told me, she's like, I'm always learning. I'm always learning something new. So.
Yeah. Yep. Nancy, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
For being on. And I will holler at you when this thing goes live.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Good
Thank
to
you
see
so
ya.
much.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Bye.
Take care.